Doing her genius work.
All right, we are live. Welcome back to the second of our Fishtrap faculty public readings today. We have 3 actual faculty readings. The last one is with Janae Brown-Wood, who that one unfortunately is not going to be available to the public for copyright reasons. But our summer fish trappers, you are welcome to join us for that reading at 4 o'clock. I am super excited about this reading today because I can honestly say, for all intents and purposes, this is probably one of our most fish trap faculty people to date. Whitney is. When did we first meet her? About 4 years ago, I think. She bounded into the house, having just moved to Wallowa County, and had this energy that I think, once you meet Whitney face to face, I don't know how to explain it exactly. You just get filled with this big energy bomb. That's pretty amazing. She wanted to get involved with this right away as someone who is involved with science in the nature world, the natural writing. And before we knew it, we had her on an outpost trip. So she helped us out with Outpost a few years ago. Then she started working with Cam Scott, who is then our youth program manager, and started working with our Fishtrap Story Lab program in the schools. Then when Cam left, she got brave and joined us to be our youth program manager right about the time the pandemic hit. And she stuck with us. She helped us put together virtual summer fish trap last year, and then decided to follow Cam again into the public school teaching world. And while we say I was sad to lose her, we didn't lose her. And we brought her back to work with our younger youth writing workshop this year. And those kids are lucky to have her. And I am grateful to call her as a friend. So I'm glad to get to host her first summer fish trap faculty reading, and I'm grateful for all of you for sticking with us, and I know you're going to be glad to experience Whitney. So Whitney is an outdoor educator, and boy is that true. She's a 5th grade teacher in Halfway, Oregon. She holds an MS in natural resources with certificates in the science communication and outdoor education, and our Master of Arts in teaching, which she just got. So there you go. She's currently recovering from her first year of classroom teaching, which I want to ask you about, as well as working on publishing a work of paint strip poems entitled Painting and Landscape Poetry. And I've seen many of these, and they are beautiful. Maybe she'll give you her Instagram handle so you can follow her and find out more. Before becoming a teacher, Whitney worked as a contract writer and has published work all over the internet, and it's quite good. She's a Colorado native, as am I, and an avid outdoorswoman, me not so much, often rightfully accused of having her head in the clouds, me as well. So when not encouraging her students to daydream about the mysteries of nature, she spends her time chasing her dogs through the Eagle Cap. So Whitney, speaking of resilience, tell me a little bit about your first year teaching in a pandemic.
Oh my goodness. My heart goes out to the educators out there. I have heard horror stories of what it's like to be a first year teacher. They say on average, you should expect to work between 60 to 70 hours. They don't mention anything about a pandemic working its way into all of that. And maybe you might be virtual one day and you might be in person the other day, and you might be trying to heal up from getting vaccinated while you're also wearing a mask in front of all of these students that you've never seen their faces because they're in masks. And also grad school on top of it. 53 credit hours in one academic year on top of being a first year teacher. It was bananas. It was insane. And it was nothing that I could have anticipated, but next year's going to feel really easy. I have a feeling.
That's good. Yes. Well, and you are, so Whitney and Jason are teaching our youth workshops this year, which actually are in person. How's that going?
Oh, it's such a joy. It is absolutely amazing. I had no idea what to anticipate. I just had a year of classroom teaching where the kids have to be there. I mean, they have to show up every day legally. But to this workshop, the kids are electing to be there, and they are self-identifying as writers before they walk in that door. So it has been a learning experience for me like no other. I have been getting so much writing done and being so saturated by such rich conversations with these young people. It it's filling my cup, to say the very least.
Well, I'm super excited to get to hear more. If for those of you that are in the county, uh, we will be doing a showcase on Friday up at Joseph Charter School with both of these workshops. I think there's 11, 10 or 11 students in total this year. And if you've not come to one of those youth showcases in the past, they will. If you're not excited by writing already, you will be when you leave there, because it's these kids are something, and they're led by great teachers. So that's Friday at 1 o'clock up at Joseph Charter School, and we are going to be recording that and making it available to everyone afterwards. So stay tuned for that. So Whitney, what are you going to read for us today?
Ooh, so you alluded to my paint strip poems. So I do have a couple of those for you. They're just poems I write on these paint strips that you get to be able to pick the color for your kitchen. And so I have two of those for you, but I'm going to start out with reading a piece that I think everybody can relate with, of this feeling of imposter syndrome, that we as writers, that we don't have something that's worthy of sharing, that there's always someone better than us and you get stuck in this deep dark circle. Everyone, I feel like, has this, not just writers, it's every career. And so when I feel like that, I go through a little process that I learned from Pam Royce from a writing workshop that I took at Fishtrap. And I start off with writing sentences that begin with "I write," and I fill in the blank, and I stack them on top of each other. So that's what I've got for you to start off with.
Well, wonderful. Guys, just as always, are with our summer fish trappers, if you have questions or comments for Whitney during this, please feel free to put them in the chat. And with that, you are now in control. Have a good time, Whitney.
Thank you. So the writing prompt that Pam Royce gave to us was, "Why do I write?" This is my answer. I write so I won't forget. I write to not be forgotten. I write to give a voice to the mice in the trees. I write to clear my mind and hope to sleep. I write instead of running. I write as a meditation. I write to be heard. I write because I'm scared of the sound of my own voice. I write to wake up. I write to be engaged and to engage. I write because I should. I write because there are so many ways to describe a summer afternoon. I write as a means to observe. I write to serve. I write to connect. I write to share my story because our stories will be all that we have. I write as a gift. I write because sometimes it's my only tool. I write to stay sober and talk with my demons. I write to be a shadow. I write to feel the weight lift off my shoulders. I write for future generations. I write to make the outdoors more accessible. I write so that others will know wilderness, those who have never left the city and the only jungle they know is made of concrete. I write for the important places. I write to feel like myself. I write as a way to process my thoughts, to figure out if I am being rational, dramatic, or selfish, because my words will reveal my true motives. I write to be decisive. I write to have something to possess. I write for justice and peace. I write to create chaos. That is a practice that I would really encourage a lot of you to do. You can do it on a whim. You can do it in a notebook. You can do it beside a stream, anywhere and anytime. And you always get something different. You see how you show up for yourself. It's a really fun one to do. I have a couple of poems to share with you before I read a piece that I actually put together right before coming on here. At about 12:46, I decided to get that cursor moving and put a piece together about resiliency. We'll get there. Let's start with a poem. So this one is labeled number 201, Blushing Words. When my name escapes your lips, heartfelt words of love from your plump pink hibiscus mouth, turn my freckled cheeks and tiny ears laurel pink, blush. Complimentary words with exclamation points hop off your tongue like quickly tugged verbal lollipops. Pink macaroon clouds signal the end of another day spent with you in gratitude. No pumpkin or lady slipper to catch or lose, not myth or fairy tale, only authenticity, genuine love, and a hint of pink cheeks. This second one is about the beloveds in my life, and this one is titled Number 133, Skinned Cantaloupe. Overripened champagne peach makes for a lazy breakfast. Wet puppy noses nudging for love wake me from sweet dreams. His hand on my shoulder makes me feel like a skinned cantaloupe ready to be devoured. Wildfires steal him from me. His efforts receive no celebration, only monetary gain and lifelong body pains. Daily ritual requires me in the garden, carrot curl, basil spear, tomato funk. Keep my eye on blazing skies, knowing when the smoke clears, he will be home again. I wait, linger, dawdle, until the end of Festival Orange. So you can see a collection of those poems. I really enjoy taking these paint strips out with me when I am exploring all of these beautiful places. As Shannon mentioned, I like exploring the Eagle Cap Wilderness, and there is so much to see out there. And so I will take these with me, write the poem as a note, and take a photo of the landscape behind it. You'll also be able to see all of those images on my Instagram. My handle is Painting and Poetry. So I was struggling with what I was going to read as my main piece for this faculty reading. I've been thinking about it all week, and as I mentioned, this past year has been hard. I've been hearing from a lot of the other faculty that they haven't been writing. They've been beating themselves up about it, that it's been difficult. There is no muse, there is no soul, there is nothing driving them. And I am part of that group. So I wanted to write something fresh. And I've really been playing around with this idea of resiliency and what that means to me. Obviously, I've had a really tough year, and I do feel more resilient as a result of it. As Mosley said yesterday, you can't be resilient without having experienced trauma. There is a direct relationship with trauma and resiliency. And so I was trying to put together, well, who has these relationships? And as I saw my partner, my fiance, who is a wildland firefighter, come home to me last night early off of a fire, it was a natural fit. And so I hope that he doesn't mind that he is my muse and that I share a little bit of his rawness in this piece. So I hope you enjoy it. I've always wanted to date a firefighter, the all-American hero bound by loyalty, bravery, and brotherhood, the seemingly perfect candidate for a loving husband, doting father, and upstanding citizen. Like most outwardly shiny and attractive things, the superficial exterior often doesn't align with what resides below the surface. What I had pictured was a city firefighter, the one that goes home to their family most nights, the kind that works in the city and slides down the fire pole to show off to the neighborhood kids. Wildland firefighters are different. If you've ever met a wildland firefighter, you can spot them from a mile away. The bushy beard, bulging biceps, bronzing, and typically a beer in their hand. When I began dating my partner, I had a lot of questions about his job, about the long hours, the tools, the forest management techniques, and the women who worked alongside him. He patiently translated the many acronyms and terms which now seem like another language I have grown all too fluent in. I came to learn that working in fire meant to adopt a new culture and way of viewing the natural and social worlds we live in. He arrived freshly showered last night, but in clothes that hadn't seen a washer in a while. Beard and hair overgrown, but charmingly shaggy. He didn't realize I watched him cross the street before his eyes met mine, and he plastered the smile fit for a politician onto his face. I saw the exhaustion of the past few days, how the heat, smoke, and extrication of a crew member had taken its toll on his mind and body. He often returns from fire assignments with a few more wrinkles around the eyes, one or two wily silver hairs in the beard, but I could tell this time was a bit different. He was home early. He and his crew had elected to come home from an assignment early, which is rarely done, and only when the cause is wholly justified. The last time I knew a wildland firefighter to do that, he was found dead of a self-inflicted gunshot wound in his apartment a few days after returning home. Our friend, our brother from another mother, our beloved human had relieved himself from duty when he felt the aches of depression become too overwhelming following a rough breakup. He became a statistic. The previous night, I received a text from my partner around 9:30 p.m. It was the first time I had heard from him all day. When on assignment, I may go 14 to 21 days without hearing a word from him, so I wasn't all too concerned when a day had passed. The text lit up my phone while I luxuriously wrote poetry under the canopy of evergreens. It read, "It's been a hard day. Crew member en route to hospital. Call you at 11:30. My heart sank. I knew better than to berate him with questions of who, why, or how. 5 years into our relationship, I knew what it meant for someone to get hurt out there and how busy he must be managing the crisis at hand. I had no option but to wait to hear which of the people I had had summer barbecues with, which person I had shared my partner's time with that had ended up in the hospital that night. I felt like a monster while I sat and waited. All I could think about was how thankful I was that it wasn't him. When we spoke, I could hear how raw his throat was, but not entirely sure if it was from the smoke or from barking orders. When he spoke, it was brief and hadn't released himself from the emergency style conduct. He referred to his coworker as the patient, confirmed they were stable, and deemed the cause of the incident unknown. In other words, best case scenario for finding a crew member unconscious in the middle of a wilderness area where a wildfire was burning hot and fast on the opposing ridge. What the Forest Service calls an incident within an incident. The Forest Service are experts on removing any semblance of humanity from these sorts of situations. We were meeting his crew at Terminal Gravity, a local brewery, to do what he calls put a finger on the pulse of the group. We arrived late to overhear a pitcher of beer had been bought for the table and thanks for their service. Everyone was seemingly in good spirits and laughing while making jokes about the things they would say to the kid that had flown off the fire line. There were arguments over whether or not their buddy actually had gotten 2 helicopter rides, because the first one didn't count because he wasn't actually inside the helicopter, but dangling on a makeshift bodyboard midair. The fire wives were there, elated their partners were back, vying for their attention they had been deprived of for days or weeks. An old crew member is also at the table. He had returned home from a 16-day assignment, received news of the incident, and made the 9-hour drive from his rappel base back to his home crew to check on his people. No one says a word about the fire they were fighting, except for a few self-deprecating comments about how they didn't do anything to help put it out. It's not until we get in the truck to go home that I hear the story, in detail, from my hoarse-voiced fiance. He had been up on a ridge and his crew was scattered across the hillside working the fire. He hears one of his rookies come on the radio to report he had found their crew member on the ground and he was hurt. A couple of those closest radio back to say they're on their way. My partner is the farthest one away and the only EMT on the crew. He tells me in an eerily detached voice how he realizes the only person immediately available to help had not received any medical training yet, since they had been on so many fires so early in the year. I can hear the guilt he feels in his voice. He describes how he shuffles and hops the best he can without putting his own body in danger down the ridge towards his crew. I can feel the desperation in his voice as I continue to drive and stare straight ahead at the highway, determined to not distract him from unloading this weight off his chest. He continues to explain how he gets on the radio in the most soothing voice he can muster and begins to walk the rookie through a patient assessment as he runs downhill. He tells him, "Look around you and make sure you are in a safe place. Check for trees that may be a threat and any erratic fire behavior. Check for blood, signs of trauma. Don't move him. Try to get him to talk to you, explain what happened," and so on. He doesn't have to say it, but I can tell those minutes felt like hours between the first radio call and when they arrived on scene. They were able to get the injured firefighter on a makeshift backboard, but then came the issue of getting him into an area they would be able to extract him by helicopter. Some crew members helped to carry their injured brother, while others worked to cut trails leading to a clearing, all the time with my partner thinking, if we don't pull this off, I have to be the one to call this kid's parents to tell them I let their son die on my watch. By the time he finishes telling me the details of this story, we arrive back at the cabin. I see the exhaustion overtake him as he makes his way to the porch where our dogs are waiting to greet him. He slowly lets himself down and they greedily lick the salt from his face and neck. I crouch in front of him and say a silent prayer of gratitude. as I untie his boots and slip them off his feet. I lay down next to him and we stare at the sky, absent of stars, erased by the smoke of the fire he just left. I struggle to find words to put him at ease, so I repeat things I have said to him for years when he comes back from assignment. I am so happy to have you home. We have missed you so much. I am so proud of the leader you are, and your crew is so extremely lucky to have you as their leader. You know that you have to be soft to be strong. You did everything right, including talking to me tonight. He can't help himself. His only reply is, next time we will do better. He rolls himself off the ground, groaning as he does, and says he's off to bed, throwing a, I gotta work tomorrow, over his shoulder as the door closes behind him. Thank you.
Wow, Whitney, thank you. You wrote this today, just so everybody's clear. Yeah, this was just written, so it's pretty raw. I want to ask a little bit. I know, Zach,
Yeah.
you guys have been living this firefighter writing life. I'm hearing I'm not crying, you're crying. Yeah. You've been, living this firefighting, seasonal firefighting life for a long time. And I know Zach is, you know, really involved with leading his crew. How do you think your writing life, your creative life helps you process all of this? Or does it? Is that a tool
Oh,
you
it absolutely does. Ever since I was a little girl, I've always picked up a journal. It's my go-to decompression mode. You just like I was saying with this why do I write prompt that Pam Royce had given us, it's a way to work through it, and I'm always surprised of what comes up. Where is this feeling coming from? Am I feeling sad or am I feeling worried? And it helps me to be able to work through that process from beginning to end, because Zach is he's my everything. He's my partner. He's the person that I go to when I'm feeling upset or stressed. And when he's not here and he's the source of the stress, because I'm thinking about him out there on the fire line, especially seeing the sky like it is here right now these days, it's the only therapy I have.
You're working with kids now. Well, you have been all year, but particularly like you talked about, you now have these students who are, they want to be there. That's one of the things we do love about providing a writing resource for kids like this, is you have those kids that, I think Cam has put it before, that they found their tribe. This is the people they want to be with. And yet you're doing this at the end of a pretty traumatic year. Not all these kids are local. They're coming from different communities. They don't all know each other. How are you able to use your love of writing and connect with these kids to help pull some of their creativity out? What kind of tools are you using with these kids this year? What was your approach? What's your thought?
We were given a lot of leeway because of the situation with pandemic. And we were told over and over again that social emotional was the focus. It was not math, writing, science this year. It was making sure that these kids came out on the other side feeling supported and loved, and knowing that they had an adult that they could trust. And so I met the kids where they were at. When we were having a hard day and they couldn't focus and the masks were too much, we would go outside and we'd stare at the clouds. And I would tell them to bring their notebooks and bring their pencils, and we would go out, and some days we'd do a free write. Sometimes I would give them some parameters and some bumpers to keep them in line so that they didn't feel like they were hanging off in a cloud, to be able to help them guide their thoughts. But I would just give them the tools and leave it up to them. Know that they really telling them, no matter how you go about this, it's not wrong. Your art is your art. No one can tell you if it's right or it's wrong. And this is the safe place to be able to do it. And some of the kids didn't want to write, they would want to draw. And that's perfectly fine. Drawing is poetry, in my opinion. I'm sure mostly would agree with me.
Cam has a question. How often do you experience generative bursts of writing versus writing projects like your painting and poetry?
Me personally?
Mhm.
Mm, I actually really have to be intentional about those poems because I'm one of those hikers that I go out and I just want to move my body. The intent is to be able to go out and get exercise and see as much as I can see in a short amount of time. And so I am very intentional about sitting down and forcing myself, especially with my ADD brain. I have ADD, a very little known fact about me. Um, Having to process this from top to bottom. I force myself to do this. The bursts of creativity, I would say they come at 3 months at a time. I've tracked this in my journals. And there's 3 months periods, and it's usually in the shoulder seasons. That's a language that Cam can understand. There's summer and there's winter. Those are main seasons. The shoulder season is spring and fall, mud seasons. And you sit around, there's not much to do, there's not much to explore. And so I'll sit and I'll just fill notebooks, and it comes naturally, and it's not forced, it's not intentional, it's just an outpouring of words nonstop. But that is a pattern I've noticed. Yeah, thanks for the question, Cam.
How can those of us that are living and working in creative worlds, creative life, what do you think is our role in working with kids going forward? How can we help those of us that aren't in classrooms? Put you on the spot. Speak for children everywhere, Whitney. Go for it.
I know it. Well, it's different where the different places that you go, because my answer would have been much different a year ago living in Joseph. It's much more affluent than I realized. And now being in a school where 70% of the kids are on free or reduced lunch, my answer is much, much different. For my current answer of the school that I am in, the experiences that I'm having, it is provide a safe place. Let them be them and help to guide them to understand what is safe, what is right from wrong, and 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 just hope, and to encourage them to keep creating, to keep the output.
Great. So Whitney, how can people find out more about you? How can they follow you?
You can follow me on Instagram. The painting and poetry is my handle, one word, all lowercase. You can also follow me on my portfolio. I add all of my new pieces of writing when I have them that are on clippings.me/Whitney Chandler. So you can also find me there.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being brave and jumping in with the gang. To go jump in with the lake, hopefully. So,
oh yes.
And with that, I think we're gonna go ahead and wrap this up today. Those of you that are in Summer Fishtrap land right now, our next reading is with Janae Brownwood at 4:00. And then tomorrow, publicly, we have 3 public readings with Jason Graham, aka Mosley Wada. So we'll follow that right back up. And Anita McConaughey, whom we love and adore, and Ellen Waterston, whom we also love and adore. So we'll have a full house for you then. And then also we do have Craft Talk again. So with that, we'll go ahead and sign off, and we will see you all, some of you in the next half an hour, and the rest of you tomorrow. So thank you very much.